Same thing with the PDS bike.
All right, here we are live from Highland Cycles with Mini Javier. Full Javier. Chassis setup clinic, go.
Good morning. Here we have a KTM 300 2017. It has a link system, linkage in the bottom. PDS shock has the same style adjustment, nothing changed. Or any bike, it's the same. On dirt bikes or adventure bikes, pretty much all of them except BMWs and those European Harleys. The rest are like this. So you have a low speed compression, high speed compression, rebound. That is the shock. That is connected to a chassis. It's connected to the forks. They have a upside down forks. There's so many differences right now that it's better you read your manual so you know what you have and where your adjusters are. This particular is an air fork. So you have an air spring and the hydraulic fork. Compression in the top, rebound on the bottom. It's all connected. So I see a lot of times guys send suspension to any suspension tuner in the wall and then he send it back to you and it's 650 to 70% the dial. If it's good, 80. But any consumer has to do the last 20%. So it's important, you know, all these reconnected. I see a lot of people chase problems on the rear and the front and they come straight from the rear because they never check the sag, or they check the sag when the bike was brand new and they 10 hours later, that shock already create his memory, and this gonna be kind of that way for a long time. But you have to check every 3 or 4 months. It's part of the 30-hour maintenance, I guess. If you ride a lot, it's every month. So, then we have the sag. Sag is about around 33% of the total travel of the wheel. So if you want to do it exactly, you take your shock out, you remove the spring, install it back on, and then you measure this distance from the axle. I always find a point like at the end of the seat because the most accurate travel that the axle do. I see many people put a sag scale straight up. This axle doesn't travel straight up. It curves a little bit as it travels. So the angle is kind of always a good reference. A static sag is also 33% of your total sag. So you divide it by 3. So you have a 100mm sag, rider sag, in a linkage. You want around 25 to 30 millimeters static sag. On a PDS bike, you want around 35. And it's pretty much the rule. The most important one is you get close to your rider sag with no more than 10 millimeters of preload on your spring. Otherwise, you need the next size springs. And it's probably the most important part in a motorcycle, off-road, motocross, is the rear. If you always have to choose to start somewhere, you have to buy the rear spring first because most of your weight is there. If you're tall guy, even more because you're putting way more pressure on it, the rear than the front. So, one second, I have to get out the spring.
Hi, everybody.
Here we have a spring is outside so you can measure the total length. It says 225. This spring is a triple rate, 60, 63, 66, 225. This is what the new PDS Explorer use on KTM. So you take a measure and it's actually 227. So you install it And the rule of thumb, if you had the right spring for you, you make this length 222 millimeters. So you compress it 5 millimeters, and then you have to be right on the money on the side. Maybe one turn in and out. And if it's close enough, I leave it alone. Ride it. If it's a new bike for you and then you never ride that same style bike, like if you go from 17 to 18, don't worry. If no, you ride it, grab a mile or two, a single flag you know, do a few laps, and then you can change one turn in, one turn out to suit your style. Everybody's different. So makes a difference. Like in my own personal bike, I ride a lot more sag because I'm short, so I need sometimes touch the ground. So I accommodate that to myself. So I run it a lot of loose, and then I adjust my ride high so it's not so soft with the high speed. So it holds the bike up in the stroke, even if I ride a lot more sag. Then I compensate the hay with the forks. I slide it up, so I don't ride in a chopper. But I concentrate first thing in the rear because it's where it's gonna tell me if I ride a chopper bike or if I need to adjust anything, how I like it, how I sit on the bike, how I like it comfortable, and how it reacts. So then you put it on and adjust the sag. You right there, you are zero. Release the stand, bounce a couple of times. He's running 40 millimeters or rider side. And then you can see already that his rear is low. If you look at it, you can see the rear is already low. And if anyone of you guys sit on it, you're gonna see this thing goes all the way past the recommended side. You know, I can get the side with my hand. So I'm not putting 170, 180 pounds pressure. Like this. I wish. I'd be winning Tennessee knockouts and all those races, carrying my bike over. So this is a good sample of how a chopper bike goes. You can look at it. You can take a picture straight here, Mono, and look at it. This is way low. So the front, it doesn't have more room to move it because it's riding those flex bars. So if the guy likes the rear like this front forks should be lower internal by 15 millimeters to accommodate his style. And the bike being way more precise and super good on the rocks and the stuff. This guy maybe just go, I just come back from Reno to Vegas, race. Okay, they're probably fine for that. Wide open stuff, you just lay it on the rear fender because you want to go 100 miles an hour. Probably okay. If you ride it like how you rode today, dry creek, you'll be all over the place. You cannot put that front end where you want. So that's a good rule. You know, as soon as you have the rear side and everything for your weight, then you can do whatever you want on the front. Play with the air pressures on the air forks, play with the spring preload, and stuff like that. So that's because the shock and the forks are connected with the chassis. So it's a thing that some people don't think about it, but they all work together. And the rear, if you have you can have the best forks in the wall. If the rear is bad, those forks are bad. It's just don't matter. And I see a lot of here to the shop. Oh, service the fork, service the fork, service the fork. And the rear, oh, there's no leaking. So don't worry. Doesn't need service. It's like the rear end on a truck.
Yeah.
We change, I don't know how many oil changes. The rear end, 100,000 miles is fine. This is no rear end on a truck. This go wrong and your life is on it. So it's very important, all those things. many times guys that don't really avid riders and just ride once a month, 4 or 5 times a year, they don't really check into. They don't have time, and it's not as pleasure the ride. Sometimes it's struggle, no traction. There's a lot of other things, and it's another whole world when you have your suspension done for yourself, or at least springs and clickers, so it can work for you. So after I do all that, have all my chassis set up, I adjust my clickers in the middle, compression and rebound, send in the forks, and I always start my high speed by 1.5. So high speed, what it does is control the flow passage through the nitrogen reservoir. So it gives you more or less pressure to the whole circuit. I do that in 1.5 so I can adjust first my rebound. So I adjust it always once at a time. I adjust rebound first, same with the forks, get it comfortable with rebound how I like it. Then I start compression, do I like it. Then I readjust my rebound because I maybe went too soft in compression, so I tighten a little bit my rebound. And the last, I play with the high speed. Why? Because with the high speed and sag, you can go from narrowly mounted single track to wide open desert just with tightening on loosening high speed and the changing your sag. You know, my personal bike is a TX 300 2018, and I ride a lot in sergeants. So I ride more sag in sergeants because it's rocky, it's a slow speed. I barely get out third gear. Tons of rocks. I ride my forks up in the stroke, up in the parts, sorry because I'm short. So I lower kind of the chassis without lowering internally by 15 millimeters, and it suit me good. So that way I did that. So I had to firm up my high speed half a ton. Next time I did my service, I address internally so I can go back and run in 1.5. So that's if you have your suspension service every 30-40 hours. If you make those notes and you tell your suspension tech, hey, I ran in the rocks 1 ton and in the whoops on the desert 1 3/4. Okay, we can make a plusher if we just run a 1.5 on the rocks and the 2 tons on the desert, and you tie the rebound on the desert, and then your bike is gonna be way stable and the more comfort through the whoop. You can pretty much lay it to those whoops. They're 4 gear wide open, bike is gonna be stable. You can stay on the top because the rebound, the high speed loosen it up so the fluid moves a lot of freely without sacrifice for bottoming resistance. That is depends on the guy that built the shop. What I built here is stuff that you can work from the mountain to the desert with few adjustments if you're honest with yourself when you fill the suspension form. It's very easy. I've been done it so many years that it comes natural, and then because I take in the whole chassis situation, knowing as individual components, like many of the big guys, because they have a production, the number that at the end of the month has to be there, so they have mass produce. So it's 4 or 5 kits reproducing what is in a paper. That's different. So you need to find somebody that you're comfortable with talk to. If you write the stuff, you write even better, and you have to be honest with yourself. And then you can get us for a good bike to super excellent bike that is gonna be comfortable to ride, very predictable and safe. It's gonna put you every single ride through the ride without doing nothing funny. So when the bikes do something that is you don't like it and you keep riding it, you're pushing yourself to crash and hurt yourself. So sometimes you just need to turn around and go to the track. I said, today's not my day, I need to fix my problem. It's just the way it goes with a lot, pretty much everything else in life. You know? Sometimes you have bad days, okay, this can go wrong or something loose, or you don't ride your bike for 3 months and you ordering on the nitrogen wet dry and the loss of the nitrogen, and that was your day to ride, go back and fix it. So That being the shock. The forks, you know, you have to be able to get the right correct springs. Make sure they're not sticky. So when you wash your bike, you go get silicone spray, pledge, whatever. After it's all washed, you coat the legs, and then when you all socks or rag or something, whatever you have, you keep it, clean it, and you put it through here, and then you just wipe it off the excess after 5 minutes. That take all pretty much the soap stiction, the hard deposits on the water stiction. It's gonna keep you sealed from blowing doing a wet ride, because you go through a pole, it's muddy, and you went 10 miles, there was no mud, and there's a bunch of hard deposit, and you bottom it again. 60% of the time, you seal is gonna cut that dry spot, turns back to his normal shape, but already got cut. That doesn't mean because you do all that, you don't have to change your oil. That is preventing a problem, an issue, so you always have your forks tip-top shape, no matter how many days or wet conditions you ride. You just get to the track, if it was wet, hose it off, do the same pledge again, you'll be good for 10 days, 15 days. Yeah. Silicone is pledge. But silicone motorcycle is $10 a can. It's expensive if you use it all the time. All the time. It's good. But if you're riding wet conditions or dry too, and it's gonna be like here, monsoon. So it's dry, rain for half an hour, get some puddles, get dusty again. It gets coated. The stuff goes inside later on. So start wear, bushings, shims, a bunch of stuff. They add to the cost of the service. You just do all that and then you service your stuff every 40 hours, maybe 150 to 200 hours you probably do bushings. Shims, you only change one in the mid valve every time because of wear, because it floats. There's no fix. So it's important. Other thing in the forks, and it's why I adjust the rebound first. What you adjust in reality is a free bleed that the mid valve has. So if you have too tight on the rebound, less oil going to the free bleed, the bike is harsh because it affects compression and rebound at the same time, and the same amount. You only adjust in a free bleed. So some companies now they're making the adjustable free bleed because adjusting the height of the nut, so adjusting the float on the piston. Some people like it, some people no. I think it lost precision because you adjusting two things at once inside a fork, so it can get too loose too quick. So other than that, that's how I adjust the forks. And the last thing, when every time you change your wheel, you have to center your forks. So there's two ways to do it. Tie one of the pinch bolts, tie the axle, loosen it up, push the bike. It's gonna move and then be centered. Tie it. Other way, if you have a stand, a fixed stand, you can roll the front wheel and then grab the brake a few times. Do it 2-3 times. It centers also. Easy. So whatever system like it is what you have to use. I use both, depending which stand I use it in that moment and where I am. If I'm in the left on the finished suspension, I just do this. It's easy. When I'm in the fixed stand, I just roll the front wheel and then hit the brake. I do it 3-4 times, and then the impact, put the axle where it has to be under the front forks, parallel, so they don't bind. So then you can constantly, you're taking away all the chances that something work against your suspension. Chain adjustment has to be right. If you have your chain too tight, binds. I run mine looser. If I don't hear my chain, I have to loosen it up so I can hear my chain when I ride. And that's pretty much it. I think. Any other questions?
Any questions? Anybody?
So the high speed. So you're saying if you're in the lower end of it,
Pulse it up in the stroke, so you can lose lower speed.
so you can use it lower. So you revalve it so that you actually
I revolve this
are
bar.
tighter in more, so that you're desert. You're doing it at 2 turns.
Yes, because
And
I run my lower speed compression much tighter. Say for the woods and the rocks, I run my lower speed compression around 18 to 20. On this shock, they have 35 clicks. They have 35 clicks, and the high speed 1.5, 1.25, right there. In the desert, I run the same low speed, probably at 12, and then my high speed at 1.75 to 2.
So that
The highest
so
speed.
so
on
the high
desert-
speed's holding the suspension up in the stroke, and you can
So you use
you have a softer
soft
low speed.
Exactly, so it's flusher everywhere because you don't travel at really high motorcycle speed, but the suspension high speed.
So when you
it's a
turn your
lot.
high speed up, it actually helps it flow faster.
When you turn it out, or out, yes,
Yes,
faster.
it
Flows faster through the high speed adjuster.
So
through the
so at 2 turns out, it's gonna allow it to flow faster, but it holds it up in the stroke.
No, 2 turns out, it drops it in the
drops
stroke,
it, drops it back.
making it better for desert high speed, right? Because it's
I'm
more
flowing
chopper.
more fluid through the compression adjuster for the lower speed
So when you
compression.
turn it in, it holds it up in the stroke.
But-
For rocks, it gives you a better steering angle.
When I turn it in,
Right.
Yep.
it's a lot better, so doesn't get that chopper, but much better steering angle, much precise through the rock, so you can pick up your line, and the bike is straight to the line at those
Yeah,
speeds.
Better
At
turn.
the speed you run on the wood, you never over 4 gear on the tire stuff here. You know, it's tighter than you need, and when you click fifth, it's only for 100, 200 yards, so it don't really matter. And then what I do is tie the high speed, and then open the low speed. So I run in more fluid with the shimmer stack this here open. Opens because it's out 20 clicks. It flex, you know, it's more fluid through the free bleed, and also the shim flex more because I have the high speed tire. When I open the high speed for desert 1.75 to 2, and I go with this lower speed adjusted to around 12, I make the fluid go faster through the shimmer stack that is pretty compressed because the spring pretty low. So open and close.
So I've heard the high speed can also affect your rebound.
Yes. Yes, you have to tie your rebound.
You have to
Most
tighten
likely,
it.
yeah.
So
I
when
tie both. I run from 18 and the 16 to 12 and 12. So it's firmer. But I do that when I shock I already revolve and I know what is inside, and I also revolve the high speed. So 1 or 2 clicks makes a lot of difference compared to stock. I make this high speed much more active. When I revolve a shock, this here is a spring and the shimmer stack and a piston. I make it way more active than what is a stock version. I run more shims, but it's tighter, skinny. So it's active, open and close, really quick.
Yeah.
Right now opens and close, and after that it works. It's busy. It's a very busy part of the shop. And in the stock form, it's so stiff. It takes more the open, and it takes more the close. So it's quite passive. Doesn't work as hard.
Which makes it harsh.
Exactly. And the time reaction. And you put the rebound at 12 clicks with the stock high speed. If you rebound the shock and then you don't touch the high speed and then you go to this and you do 12-12, it's kind of packed.
Yeah.
So by the third whoop, you start doing this, so still they just go through the top because and then you front end goes in the face and you crash. Because
Just like that.
it's quite passive.
Cool.
So when you make this part of the shock, the high speed adjuster and the low compression shock, very active, your shock kind of comes alive And then most of the time, if you take your time to adjust it how you like it, and then go back, adjust your forks, and then fine tune the fork shock one more time, the rear kind of comes natural, and then you forget about it. You don't care what it is. As soon as your front end goes over that stuff, you should just, you're looking at the next one. So you see this rock garden, you just plow through. You see a big log, you hop over that log, you know already the other nasty stuff, because the bikes just carry over easy through that stuff. Last Saturday we went hopping probably 150 logs in the trail with a crew that I used to ride all the time in California. All fast guys, some pretty much AA riders in the desert, some of them win Hound Nationals. They can go win today in their class, but they have suspension set up for the desert, they don't touch a clicker. I went away from them. They were, oh, what do you do? Why? Oh, I live here, so now I know how the desert setup is, and I have 60 hours already this year in the rocks. So I combine the both. So I just know how it works, all in the mountains, and I can go tomorrow Utah, Green River, adjust it, and I go out from the track, and I have the same confidence that I've been riding for the last 60 hours in the mountain. Just because I did those changes, I have in my loader book, and after I finish it with the desert this year, next year I go back to Sargent's, I grab my notebook, oh, I rode all this time in Sargent, when I sweat this setup, or start getting dry, I went quarter tune the high speed, and I lose 5 clicks my low speed compression in the shock, and I lower my air pressure to 120 pounds, because it gets so dry, and it didn't snow this year, so the rocks are taller, or the ruts are taller, and get out the track, 5 minutes later, same pace I was when I finished. And then in September riding that stuff, you get comfortable right away. And that's what it makes a big difference. So you need also make your notes in every change you do. Because sometimes Morgan has some nice book, airports have the engine logs. They work good for me for many, many years. So you finish riding, sitting on your track, drinking water, whatever, take 2 minutes, make all your notes for the day. If you make changes, if not, you're okay, but every time you make changes, at the end of the day, if you make it, you can, if you don't remember how many clicks, go back in, count it, go back out, put it where it was, make your notes. That carry over for the life or you have your bike. Any other question?
Any other questions? Right on. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you, Javier.
No problem.